What's going on YouTube? It's Teej back again with another video, and today I'm giving you an updated NFL mock draft and the first two-round mock draft this year. Excited to bring this one to you. Hopefully you all enjoy it. If you do, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want to see more draft content, more football content in general, hit that big red subscribe button and comment your initial takeaways from this mock draft, who your favorite team is, what prospects you think you would like to see them draft this upcoming spring. Love to talk some NFL draft with you down in the comments section. And let's waste no time. Let's just jump right into it and try to be kind of quick with this. We're talking about 64 picks, so I'm not going to try to linger with too much, but sometimes I get caught up into my tangents, including the one I'm on currently. Let's start with Kayvon Thibodeaux. He feels like the best player in this draft, so he feels like a ideal place to start, and I think the Lions have a lot of needs, right? I would just go best player available, and right now that feels like it's Kayvon Thibodeaux. And then for the Jets, I think Aiden Hutchinson makes some sense here, especially within that Robert Saleh defense where, the ends kind of have to be versatile. It varies looks between 4-man and then 3-4 looks, the 4-3, 3-4, I should say. And I think Hutchinson can give you that flexibility, but this team, despite having a defensive philosophy that doesn't ask a whole lot of the secondary, and they can make them look better than they have. And I think Bryce Hall has looked good this year. A clear-cut cornerback one will make a difference, especially as this team plays in bigger games and more prominent stages. They're going to need a guy who can line up and shut down an opposing team's number one wide receiver. And Derek Stingley Jr. flat out can be that guy. So I think it makes a lot of sense there. And it's not the last. We'll see the Jets. Obviously, they have another pick coming up here at pick number 6. Then we get to the Jags. I think you got to go Evan Neal here. Cam Robinson's probably gone. Juwan Taylor has almost certainly, he's been a huge disappointment, simply put. So you need both tackles. You need some help on the interior. Evan Neal doesn't fix it all, but he's certainly a step in the right direction. And then we get to the Houston Texans, and I think this is where you see Aiden Hutchinson go. This is a team that needs a whole lot, right? And if Derek Stingley Jr. is on the board here, let's say the Jets go Hutchinson at 2, I think you could flop, those two picks. But given what was on the board, I think Aiden Hutchinson makes a whole lot of sense. Gives them that cornerstone, pass-rushing, blue-chip option to try to build that defense around moving forward. And then we get to the Giants. And this is a really tough spot because you could go DeMarvin Leal. I think he's not a bad option by any stretch. But what I'm going to end up doing here is give him a little bit of flexibility across the offensive line. Ikem Ekwonu, a guy who's been fantastic at left tackle this year for NC State, but also has the capability of playing inside. I think he'd be a fantastic guard. He could also be someone who you slide over to play right tackle, right? Or maybe you're moving Andrew Thomas over to right tackle and playing Ikem Ekwonu at left tackle. No matter what, this offensive line needs to get better, and the NFL is kind of moving in this direction of like positionless offensive line looks where you want your 5 best guys out there. So you're seeing a whole lot of left tackles learn how to play right, and you're seeing a lot of tackles learn how to play on the inside. I think that's going to be something that continues to build upon itself moving forward. And now we're back to the Jets at pick number 6. A few different directions you could go here, and this might be a little early for George Karlaftis, but I think you're going to see a lot of edge players off the board, especially early. Like this is an edge class with a ton of freak athletes, and I think the NFL covets those types of guys so much, though, that where in years past we talked about these wide receivers and how it's just a stacked class. You can wait till the second, third, and get good value there. I just don't think the NFL is going to do that with edge rushers, and especially given how good this edge class is, it's rare. You're not going to see many edge classes that have potentially 8 dudes who go in the first round. And I think this is a class that really has that type of talent and depth to it. So speaking of edge, we're going to stick with it here. I'm going to go ahead and give the Giants an edge rusher. I think they could really use Kingsley and Enagbare. I don't know if it's Enagbare or Enagbare. I've heard both. Let me know if you know for sure, maybe if you're a South Carolina fan. But he's been going by JJ apparently now. Kingsley's a great name. He should stick with that. That said, you look at what the Giants now have at 5 and 7. Big addition on the offensive line, and now an edge rusher to stand opposite of Azeez Ojulari. And those are the 2 areas I think this team needs to improve the most, right? I think they have talent at wide receiver, and I think I like Daniel Jones as much as this kills me to say. I think he's gotten better, and if you put up a good offensive line in front of him, I think you'll see a whole lot more out of him. So why not get him protection with Ekwonu, and then let's bolster that defense, get some more edge help, make the lives of Leonard Williams and Azeez Ojulari and company a whole lot easier. Then we get to the Eagles here at pick number 8. I'd love to see Kyle Hamilton fall to Washington. I think he'd be a fantastic fit and maybe the last piece missing. But he's the best player available, and this is a team that has Anthony Harris, 1-year deal. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the season, and they just need to overall get more talented on the back end. And this is not going to be the last time you see me take a player in the secondary for them. You're going to see me take a whole lot of corners in this mock draft as well. Then we get to the Atlanta Falcons at pick number 9. And this is an area where I think DeMarvin Leal makes some sense, but I'm actually going to go true edge here. And I'm going to get one of the hottest names in college football right now, David Ojabo. This guy has all the athletic ability, and now he's putting it together for really high caliber production for one of the best teams in college football, going against Big Ten opponents. So the resume is starting to get really, really impressive for Ojabo. Now, does he go this high? 9 feels like maybe a little early for where we are in this conversation. He might even go back to Michigan, right? We don't even know if he's going to declare, but if he does, he's going to kill it at the combine, and he might be destined to go in the top 10. He's got a lot of hype behind him as it stands right now. On to the Washington football team. Man, I think this is where we're going to get our first quarterback, right? And there's going to be a handful of quarterbacks to go in this mock draft just because the position is so valuable. I like Matt Corral. I think he right now is probably my QB1. He has gotten better year over year over at Ole Miss, and he's got the mobility. He's got a strong arm. He's fairly accurate. I think there's pieces there for Washington to work with, and given the talent that team has, it feels like one of the better spots where he could end up landing. Back to the Eagles, and I'm going back to the secondary. I know Kaiir Elam got cooked in that first half against Samford. That team, the Florida team, just kind of completely lost its way in that game. I don't think it was just Elam. I think it was everybody basically for Florida. So bad game for the Gators. Don't hold that against Elam. Everything else this season has been fantastic. And now you're looking at a secondary that has Darius Slay, Kaiir Elam, and then Kyle Hamilton as your deep safety or just do-it-all safety. Okay, that defense is starting to look a whole lot better in Philadelphia. Now we're here with Carolina. This has got to be tackle. Charles Cross, that's your left tackle of the future. It's a must. No matter who's under center, they need to improve that offensive line big time. Jumping ahead to the Broncos here at number 13, I think you got to get that Von Miller replacement. Now, Baron Browning, I think, is a guy who has some upside as an edge rusher, and they also have Malik Reed, but I overall think that they're going to go in first-round direction, and Drake Jackson's a guy who looks like an NFL round 1 pass rusher, so why not take the flyer here and take him at number 13 as your potential Miller replacement, but also, even if Browning and Reed hit, Bradley Chubb has had a hard time staying healthy, and the pass rush is a huge part of that defense. So I think no matter what, you need some depth or rotational pieces, and I think Drake Jackson can be a whole lot more than just that. So like Jackson there at 13. Miami Dolphins at number 14. This has got to be offensive line. I can't believe the Draft Network has OT down this low. I like Trevor Penning. This is a freak athlete, big ceiling. And where I might be worried here, maybe you go Nicholas Petit-Frere. He feels like a safer player. Maybe he doesn't have the upside as someone like Penning. But I think if you're Miami, go with the upside here, right? Take a chance. Go get a guy who could be a franchise-level, offensive tackle and that blindside protector, whether it's Tua or it's Deshaun Watson or Russell Wilson. We'll see what happens this offseason, but they need to improve that offensive line without any question. Then we get to the Raiders at pick 15. And this is a spot where I don't hate the idea of getting edge or interior defensive line. I think Jordan Davis could be in play here. DeMarvin Leal also could be an option. But I'm going to go back to the well. I'm actually going to go in a position that gives you some flexibility. I know they just took Alex Leatherwood in the first round last year, who's this, I thought he would be a guard in the NFL. We'll see. The verdict isn't completely written yet, but been playing tackle, now playing right guard. Kenyon Green gives you the opportunity. He could be your right tackle of the future. He could be a starting guard of the future, and then whatever Leatherwood develops into, Green could be the player next to him, essentially, whether it's right guard or right tackle. So like the upside there that Green gives you, and the offensive line's been pretty bad this year for the Raiders. There's a lot of things holding them back, but offensive line's been pretty putrid. This also could be a wide receiver spot. If they really like one of those wideouts, I could see this as a potential Henry Ruggs type of replacement spot there. Then we get to the Philadelphia Eagles at pick 16, and they have 3 first-round picks, and we've addressed the defense a ton, and I think now is when you take that leap forward and you take a chance with the QB. I know Jalen Hurts doesn't look bad, but I wouldn't let him be the guy who gets in your way of getting a guy that you might like for the next 10 to 15 years. And Malik Willis has the ability to be that guy, right? Unbelievable athletic ability, a cannon for an arm. It's just about becoming a better processor and a little bit more consistent with his accuracy. But this is a spot where you have Jalen Hurts for 2 more years on a rookie contract. He's not eating up a ton of your cap. And Malik Willis is probably a project anyways that you want to at least sit for a year, maybe even 2. So this could be an opportunity where you ride out with Jalen Hurts. Maybe he gets that much better, and now you're just sitting on a former first-round pick quarterback. You can develop him for 2 years, and then he becomes a hot commodity in a couple of years' time, and you get assets back for him. Or you see, yeah, Hurts isn't anything crazy, but we like Malik Willis. This guy, he's gotten better. He is now ready to take over as QB1, and then you have this freak of a player that has this enormous potential. So I kind of like this in a lot of different ways. Plus, you have 3 first-round picks, so I'd go ahead and take a flyer anyways. I'd go ahead and take a chance on the QB with the most upside, I think, in this class. So why not? You have the assets, use them. Throw darts. And then we get to the Cleveland Browns. I really thought about wide receiver here. Honorable mention to someone like Chris Olave or Garrett Wilson. Keep one of those two in state. Wilson makes a ton of sense, but I think this is a little bit too good of a spot to pass up on DeMarvin Leal. He could be your 4-3 end in replacement to Jadeveon Clowney, or you kick him inside and he can play some D-tackle. It gives you that versatility, and overall he's just going to be a high-level pass rusher if he doesn't go back to Texas A&M. He's fallen a little bit in this process because, his junior year hasn't been as immaculate as I think we wanted it to be, but he's still a really high caliber football player. Like, he's still one of the best players in the country, even if he's not quite elite like we had hoped he would take that leap forward to being this year. Pittsburgh Steelers, this could certainly be tackle. I wouldn't hate Petit Friere, Sean Ryan, or maybe Kirkland's probably a little early for him at this point. He's fallen quite a bit. I think this has got to be corner, though. Joe Hayden looks like he's going to be a free agent, and I'm not entirely sure they bring him back. And then even after Hayden, Cam Sutton's been really nice to watch this year, but then there's a lot of question marks that begin to arise. I think Ahmad Sauce-Gardner has been fantastic this year. He gives you the size that Pittsburgh likes to like, or tends to like in corners. He's about 6'2". I think he's just a good overall scheme fit. And then I think quarterback or offensive tackle then becomes the focus in round 2, which we will get to later on. Then we get to the New Orleans Saints. They went after OBJ. They need a wideout bad. Garrett Wilson right now is still my wide receiver 1. He just gives you the most upside, I think, between size, downfield ability, route running, his hands. The guy has it all. And New Orleans needs a wide receiver really badly. So makes a lot of sense there. And then we get to the Minnesota Vikings. And this is a spot where I could see edge, right? Maybe they like Zach Harrison. Maybe they like Travon Walker. Wouldn't that be something? And Walker in specific. He would probably be where I would go if I was going to go edge here, because they like those toolsy, traitsy, athletic freaks that they can then polish. Look at Everson Griffin. That's case in point. But I'm going to go corner here. And I think they're going to prioritize that secondary play, given that Patrick Peterson is old and Rashad Breeland is just not good. I know Mike Zimmer's done a good job hiding that secondary, but it's a troublesome group, to say the least. So Andrew Booth Jr. feels like fantastic value, and that's the other component here, right? You could go after one of those edges, but it feels like Booth at 20 feels like even better value. So I think you can justify it that much more if you're a Minnesota fan at pick number 20. And then we get to the Buffalo Bills here at 21. Ed Oliver's been a disappointment and not very good against the run, so Jordan Davis, I think, makes some sense. I'm going to go to the interior of the offensive line, and I think Darian Kennard makes a ton of sense. Now, I do have to address, I think Tyler Linderbaum is probably the best interior offensive lineman in this class, but you've now seen me take, Kenyon Green and Darian Kennard over him. Those guys both could be tackles at the NFL level, but they also could be high-level guards. And Ike Ekwonu, you could lump in that conversation as well. The only problem I have with Linderbaum is the team that would most need him, I think, in my eyes, would be the Giants. And do you take a center in the top 5? Probably not. Do you take a center in the top 7? Probably not. And from that point onward, he's just a center, right? Kennard, Green, Ekwonu, those are guys who can play guard and tackle. Linderbaum's going to be a center only. So now you're looking for teams that need center play, and there just hasn't been a team that comes up just yet. But we're going to get to Linderbaum very soon. The LA Chargers, this has got to be Jordan Davis, especially if Brandon Staley is going to play this defense and fight you to run the football. He needs someone who can just naturally eat up blocks, and Jordan Davis is a monster of a human being. You've heard 1,000 people say it's 6'6", 340. I think it might be closer to 350, honestly, now. I've heard it all over the place. But that dude's going to eat up blocks. He's going to stuff the run, and that allows you to play those two high looks that Brandon Staley has, him, Vic Fangio, and a few others have made the way forward in the NFL. So I think Jordan Davis is exactly what that defense needs. They could also go linebacker, Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd could be in play there as well. Cincinnati Bengals, this is the spot for Tyler Linderbaum, I think. A great center is that, second quarterback in a lot of ways, allows you to see the field, those line adjustments, those shifts, et cetera, et cetera. And that's kind of the weakness at this point. I will go tackle later on with Cincinnati. But the offensive line needs to continue to be patched up, right? And if you take a player here and a player there, next thing you know, that unit's going to become pretty good, and it's going to ensure that Joe Burrow will be the franchise quarterback moving forward. And it's going to allow you to get even more out of those wide receivers because Burrow's not going to be under duress. It's going to get that much more out of Joe Mixon. So they've done a good job patching up the defense too. So I feel like, again, offensive line needs to be the priority. Then we get to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and now we're in a spot where I don't love the IDL options, and I'm not crazy about the IOL options, at least based off of where we are at pick number 24. So what's held them back this year? It's cornerback injuries, and you have I believe it's Carlton Davis who could be a free agent after this upcoming season. So you're already potentially losing a starter there, but even if you're not, this is a team that needs to just have that insurance policy just in case something like this happens again, where you lose Murphy Bunting, you lose Davis, and Jamel Dean's not playing at 100%. He's banged up all the time. So go out there and get a good value with Trent McDuffie. He's better than 24th in this class if you were talking true talent. He's a fantastic player, and he's coming from a program that's produced cornerbacks at a pretty high level. So I like Trent McDuffie there to Tampa Bay at 24. Then we get to the Kansas City Chiefs, and I think this is a good spot to go wide receiver. And this is a team that needs a different look, right? Like, I could go Chris Olave, but he's that burner downfield weapon, and they kind of already have that with Tyreek Hill. I like the idea of Drake London. He's probably been the best receiver in college football this year, and he's just that big, long-armed, can do a whole lot, possession type wide receiver. He can play from the slot, he can play from the outside. I think he opens up the playbook in a lot of ways. And additionally, Travis Kelce's getting a little bit older, so to have a guy who has a similar-ish skill set would probably do wonders for Kelce, not having to do as much as that basically possession wide receiver for that offense. So I like London there at 25. And then we get to the New England Patriots, and this is a spot where I'm going to double up on wide receiver here. This has got to be Chris Olave to me. They just need that big play element. And I know they're finding ways to get more out of Kendrick Bourne and Nelson Aguilar, but Olave is better than those two right now. He just is. Like, he would have been a first rounder for me last year. He should be a first rounder this year. I think he's fantastic. And I thought about corner here, but ultimately with how good J.C. Jackson has played, I have a hard time thinking they don't re-sign him. So we'll see as this process continues on, and we obviously get through free agency. If J.C. Jackson is still in New England, then I think wide receiver definitely is the way to go. But if he's not, and they don't re-sign him, then cornerback becomes an option here at 26 or wherever New England is picking. Detroit Lions at pick number 7. I'm going back to the quarterback position. Let's go Sam Howell. You have Jared Goff for one more full year, and I think it'd probably be wise to just ease Howell in. I don't think he sits for an entire year, but getting used to what an NFL offense looks like, right? That UNC offense is very collegey, a lot of RPOs, a lot of go balls, a lot of posts. It looks like a college system. So it might take some time for him to acclimate with not only the speed of the NFL, but what an NFL offense actually looks like and everything that comes with being a quarterback, the line checks, the audibles, and reading a defense in general. So it might not be a bad idea to draft Sam Howell. You have Goff for his final year of his deal. He starts the first 8 weeks, whatever, and then Howell takes over thereafter. So this is your potential QB of the future, though, if you're Detroit. And if it doesn't work out, then, hey, you're picking in the top 5 anyways the next year and the year after, especially if it doesn't work out. So I think it's a pretty low-risk play here at number 27, back end of the first round. Then we get to the Dallas Cowboys. I think I got to go safety here. Jaquan Brisker's getting a ton of hype, and he's just this do-it-all safety. And this is a really good safety class. Like, Kyle Hamilton's the freak, but Daxton Hill, Jaquan Brisker, who I just took, Jordan Battle's another guy, like Brandon Jones, all the guys you see on your screen basically right now, they're all really good safety options, and I like them all a lot. And I think they all provide a lot of versatility. McKinley the third here from Oregon is probably the true free safety, but a lot of these other guys can have that combo safety ability where they could play in the box, they could be that strong safety, or they could be an overtop free. That's kind of, especially with two high looks, I think you're going to see a whole lot more split safety in this cover 2, 4, 6 world of football we're moving towards. So having safeties that can do a whole lot definitely makes it a lot easier. So I like Brisker there, and it's probably the weakest point of the Cowboys roster. Now, I know safety in the first round is not a super sexy thing when it comes to position value, but I think it's an area of need, and now you get a really good player for the next 5 years if you pick up his 5th-year option, and it helps stabilize that Dan Quinn defense, especially if he's going to continue to play those single high cover 3 looks, then he's asking that much more of his single high safety. That point aside, let's move on to the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to go for it. I have a hard time finding what this team should go with in the first round. Let's go Travon Walker. They obviously need another edge rusher opposite of Odafe Owe. Tyus Bowser's a little bit older, and Pernell McPhee's not your long-term guy. Calais Campbell is, getting older. He's like that 3-4 end, and maybe Walker could play that 3-4 end spot, 6'5", 275. I'm not entirely sure, but man, with Walker's athletic profile and what Baltimore's already gotten out of Odafe Owe, could you imagine those two standing opposite one another? Those two edge rushers juxtaposed to one another? Oh my gosh. Like, as a Steelers fan, I am horrified, but it's also as like a team building fan, that is unbelievable. Like, those are unbelievably good, talented athletes that just present so much upside that, wow, that could be crazy, especially with Wink Martindale kind of pulling the strings, the maestro behind it all. That would be scary. I don't know if they go this direction, but it's at least an interesting thought experiment. Green Bay Packers, I don't think they hold on to Devontae Adams, so I think Treylon Burks is kind of a must here. This team's neglected going wide receiver in the first round, but I think once you lose Adams and you see that it's MVS and Allen Lazard, if Lazard even comes back, as your starting wide receivers, yeah, I think this team's then going to be like, okay, yeah, we should take one in the first round. And I think Treylon Burks is probably the best guy available, though there is some other names worth considering, especially if you want a burner. Jameson Williams, John Mechie, they make sense. John Dotson's a very crisp intermediate option. George Pickens is kind of the wild card of them all. All that aside, I like Burks there at 30 for Green Bay. Then we get to Tennessee. I think Devin Lloyd, him or Nakobe Dean here, I think would be fantastic fits. Both unbelievably good athletes, can help in the run game, true sideline to sideline, 3-down linebackers. And it feels like that's the one area that defense is missing right now for Tennessee. So it's kind of a no-brainer there for me. And then we get to the final pick of the first round, the Arizona Cardinals. And you could go in a few different directions here. And ultimately, I think this team will bring back Chandler Jones, but if they don't, yeah, I think edge becomes a pretty glaring need. You could also go cornerback here. I like Roger McCreary. I think he's better than player 53 on the board, but let's go with Myjai Sanders. This, it's kind of almost like Joe Tryon-Shoyinka at the end of last year, where he's just this high upside freak athlete, maybe from a school that you don't peg as like edge rushing, but I think there's a lot of pieces that Sanders has to work with as an NFL pass rusher, and Vance Joseph's done a fantastic job getting a lot more of that defense than should be there. So who's to say he can't do the same thing with Sanders? We're on to the second round, and we're starting with the Detroit Lions. We gave him Sam Howell, this big arm quarterback. How do you take advantage of it? You go out there and get him maybe the fastest player in this draft, Jameson Williams. He's been fantastic this year for Alabama, and I love the idea of him and Howell. Whew. And then, obviously at the top of the draft, got Kayvon Thibodeau, so you have that cornerstone edge rusher. Yeah, I'm liking the way this draft would play out if I were a Lions fan. Then we get to the Jags at pick number 34. We went off at the tackle earlier, and I think now is the spot where you can go to the other side of the football. As much as I did like Caleb Chason coming out of LSU, given his athletic profile and what he could be, it hasn't worked. So let's give him Zach Harrison, a guy who comes from a school that produces edge rushers at a high level, and he looks like an NFL caliber guy. He has the body, he has the build, and he has the athletic profile. He won't be the number one guy in any of these like 40, 3-cone bench press. He won't be the guy that is number one in any of those athletic categories once we get to the NFL Combine, but he'll be near the top, and he'll prove to be a good athlete. But I think this is good value here for Jacksonville as they continue to try to rebuild that pass rush, and they need somebody opposite of Josh Allen to take that work off of his plate. Get to the Washington football team. And like I said earlier, I'd love to see Kyle Hamilton go to them at 10, but since he's not there, Daxton Hill, a player I like a lot, but I like Jordan Battle. I think Jordan Battle's still safety too for me. I just like his ability to do everything, and this feels like a team that would be aided so much with a safety that could help make the lives of William Jackson III and Kettle Fuller and that secondary overall a lot easier, knowing they have that deep coverage safety when he's playing deep, but also somebody who can chip in and help in the run game, play close to the line of scrimmage, be in the box. Battle gives you that flexibility. You can do a little bit of both. So, again, very Xavier McKinney-like for the Giants, and see how good of football he's playing for the G-Men despite them not being very good. McKinney's not the problem, and I think Jordan Battle will give you a lot of the same things, and it might be what's missing, right? And then maybe it's that piece that unlocks the rest of the defense and makes everybody else around them better, right? The coverage is better, so the pass rush becomes that much more lethal. The better the pass rush is, the better the corners play. You hope it's a snowball effect if you're a Washington football team fan. Back to the Houston Texans. We'll go ahead and go Roger McCreary here. I think this is a good spot, right? A lot of Patriots in that building, former Patriots, I should say, in that building, and a lot of man coverage in that Bill Belichick tree, and a lot of his disciples have tried to do the same thing. Roger McCreary might be the best pure man coverage corner right there with DSJ at the top of the draft. So I've been impressed with McCreary. I think he's better than player 53 or whatever he was on the board, and I think this is a good spot for Houston. Now you look at their top couple of picks: Aiden Hutchinson, Roger McCreary. You're fixing that defense, and then use your other assets, trying to improve the offensive side of the ball, use your free agency money. I think there's a pathway forward for that team, and on the horizon, I think they could be pretty good within maybe 3 years, especially with Hutchinson and McCreary. On to the Minnesota Vikings. I think we went corner in round one. Actually, I know we went corner in round one. It was Andrew Booth Jr. Now I think you go edge, and Jermaine Johnson feels like a solid fit. I think this is just going to be a spot where Minnesota can look at their biggest needs, especially on the defensive side, which is, especially compared to the offense, a little lagging, right? Like that offense is prone to put up 30 plus on any given day when they are aggressive enough. When Clint Kubiak does not hold back Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen, they can put up 30 on just about anybody. So you add a corner, you add an edge rusher. You might not have Daniil Hunter next year. So I think that's kind of prioritizing those valuable defensive assets that are expensive on the open market, but you're also getting high caliber players additionally. So now we're on to the Chicago Bears, and tackle's got to be the way to go, right? And I think Nicholas Petit-Frere gives you great value here. You can play Petit-Frere on the left side, move Tevin Jenkins back to right tackle where he was at Oak State. And next thing you know, the tackles look that much better. And there's some good players on the interior already with Whitehair and Daniels. And next thing you know, that offensive line looks really, really solid and a place to begin moving forward with Justin Fields. And I know that probably, this could be a wide receiver spot because I don't know. I don't think Allen Robinson's going to come back. But you have Darnell Mooney, and I think there's some money to spend there trying to get some other pass catchers in the mix for Justin Fields. And who knows? You hit on Mooney in the third round. There might be someone else in the third round. Once we get to bigger and bigger mocks moving forward, maybe I'll have a wide receiver for Chicago in round 3. But I think you got to address that offensive line. You got to make Fields feel protected in the pocket. He's going to hold on to the football for a long time. Understand that and find ways to improve that metric. Back to the Philadelphia Eagles here, and I think this would be unbelievable value here in Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean's probably a first-round pick. So is Brandon Smith. So is Christian Harris. Those are all 4 of those linebackers, including the now Dean off the board, and the player I had the Titans take at the end of the first round, Devin Lloyd. Name escaped me there for a moment. I think all those guys have an argument to be made to go in the first round, but especially Dean and Lloyd. And then Smith's right there behind him, and then Harris is kind of this, blitzing middle linebacker. But, what a fantastic ad this would be for this defense. It feels like the Eagles just don't have very good linebackers. And that's not to pick on Alex Singletary or anybody like that. They just don't have a stud. Nakobe Dean could be a stud, and like I said, he should be a first-rounder in a lot of ways. So if you're an Eagles fan and you're looking at this mock draft, I think this is a realistic way forward. I think there's a chance where you wake up after draft morning shocked and awe at the idea of getting Kyle Hamilton, Kyer Elam, a potential QB of the future with Malik Willis, and Nakobe Dean. I mean, you transform that defense at all 3 levels, and then you get a potential QB of the future. That would be awesome. That would be fantastic if you are a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Back to the Miami Dolphins at pick number 40. Went offensive tackle the first time around. I'd stay with the offense, right? The Will Fuller contract ultimately didn't work out due to some whatever he is battling away from the field. And I don't want to speculate. I don't know. So, that's not for me to try to, guess and dig through his life. But ultimately, that didn't work out. I think Jahan Dotson gives this team a little bit of something they don't have, is that intermediate separator, someone who's really sudden. Like Jalen Waddle's a great after the catch and downfield burner, and he can do stuff over the middle of the field. And then you have Devontae Parker's your possession, big body, contested catch guy. I think Dotson walks that line between the two where he can get a lot done in the 10 to 19 area of the field. He'll work over the middle of the field. He'll take those hits, and he has great burst out of his break. I think he's a lot better of a separator than I had initially anticipated, but the more I watch him, the more it feels like he just beats everybody he's lined up against and creates so much separation for himself. So started growing Jahan Dotson despite being a little slow to the hype train there, and I think he'd be a good fit for Miami. And then you add a tackle, you added a wide receiver, the offense looks a lot better on paper. And this could also be more offensive line. Like this could be interior offensive line if you're the Dolphins. So definitely some options to consider there at pick number 40. On to the Atlanta Falcons at pick 41. I'm going to go Darian Kendrick. The Clemson transfer to Georgia. Let's keep him at state. Must like it, I guess. But This is a spot where we had Atlanta go defensive line in the first round, trying to bolster up that group around Grady Jarrett, if I could find the Atlanta Falcons. There they are, David Ojabo at pick number 9. Trying to garner some pass rush, and A.J. Terrell's been fantastic, former Clemson cornerback. Actually, I think he played with Darian Kendrick too, so this would be a homecoming for the two of them. But they need to bolster up that secondary outside of Terrell. And you could go safety here, but I think there's a little bit better value with Kendrick, who is a guy who, if he went in the first round, I wouldn't be surprised. So I feel like you're getting good value with Kendrick at pick number 41. Back to the Jets at 42. I think this is a really interesting spot for Sean Rhyan, a guy who I've heard around the first round conversation. To me, feels like a plug and play right tackle, right? Morgan Moses is on a 1-year stopgap contract. They might bring back Larry Duvernay-Tardif, and if they do, there's your right guard of the future, or at least for a year or two. But you could go Sean Rhyan opposite of Mekhi Becton. You just took Elijah Vera Tucker in the first round last year. You're building up the trenches, and you're going to make whoever the starting running back next year their life a whole lot easier. Probably Michael Carter, I would assume. And then you're making it easier for Zach Wilson to try to stay healthy and maybe even feel more comfortable playing inside the pocket, right? I think the big knock on Wilson this year has been he hold on to the football too long. He's trying to do too much, and he's putting the ball in harm's way. A great offensive line in front of him, make him feel comfortable inside the pocket, understand he can play within structure. That might be something that opens up the door for a lot more success than what we've seen out of Zach Wilson this year prior to him getting hurt. Back to the Giants. Let's go ahead and go linebacker here. I think this is the spot where it totally makes sense. You could also go IOL, so maybe an honorable mention to someone like Zion Johnson, who has guard and tackle flexibility at Boston College, or you could, that's probably the best play there if you're going to go offensive line. But I think Brandon Smith, again, is a guy who, if he went in the first round, wouldn't be surprised. Happy Valley is known for producing those linebackers, right? And it's one of those areas of the field where they're not necessarily great. Blake Martinez has proven to be pretty solid, but he also has a rather long injury history. So Smith's a different type of guy where I think Martinez is better against the run. Smith is probably a little bit better of an option in pass coverage. So the two complement each other pretty well when you go into your nickel sets and you're only down to 2 linebackers on the field. So I think it makes a lot of sense there. And, we went edge, offensive tackle, or just offensive line in general in the first round. The next big area that comes to mind is a place they can get better is linebacker. So Brandon Smith, there you go. There's your answer. Indianapolis Colts hold the 44th pick, and off the tackle could be in play here, right? Like you need someone who could potentially replace Eric Fisher, 1-year deal. So Jackson Kirkland, Thayer Munford, could be options. Zion Nelson if you really want to go with the project. But that said, edge or corner, I think would be the ways I'd go. I think there's a little bit more value here with cornerback, and one Kwity Paye hit, but I think you could add another edge rusher to make Paye and DeForest Buckner on the inside their lives a little easier. But it would also help if you had some better secondary play, right? Xavier Rhodes is not a long-term answer on this team. Rocky Austin has been a disappointment. So let's get Mikael Wright, and he's this guy from Oregon that kind of just profiles well in that cover 2 scheme. He's physical. He play at the line of scrimmage. He's willing to tackle, and he's willing to get in the receiver's face. So I think he makes a ton of sense fitting with that Matt Eberflus defense. And even if Eberflus gets a head coaching job, I think you're going to see something pretty similar in Indianapolis. So Mikael Wright, I think, is a good fit. On to the Cincinnati Bengals, and this could be another spot where Sean Rhyan makes some good sense. You also have Jonah Williams, who gives you flexibility, could play both tackle spots potentially, but also on the inside. But I'm kind of intrigued by them going with Daniel Falale here. He's this massive right tackle that isn't NFL ready quite yet. 6'8", 380 though, speaks for itself, and the dude's going to test well when it comes to his strength numbers of the combine. So Falale could be that right tackle of the future, right? Riley Reiff is kind of a stopgap Band-Aid. He's a 1-year contract. Falale could be the long-term guy at that position. I'm at least intrigued by it, but you could also go with someone safer like Thayer Munford or Jackson Kirkland, or you could go with a different project in Zion Nelson. I think there's some options there to be considered for the Bengals, but we went Linderbaum, now we're going off the tackle. Again, the point is to build in the trenches. And we get to Seattle, man. And this was probably the toughest one when I was mapping out where I'd go. Because, they could use a tackle. They could use a right tackle. They could also use a left tackle in the future. Even though I do like Stone Forsythe in the 6th round. I think that was a good value there. They definitely could go edge. I like the idea of Nick Benito potentially playing in that defense. Brenton Cox could have some upside. Nolan Smith plays for the best defense in football. But that secondary is putrid besides DJ Reed. And there's plenty of names they could go around here. Martin Emerson, 6'2". That's kind of what immediately jumped off the page. Caleb Evans, same height, I guess. Let's go ahead and just go Martin Emerson. take your pick of some of these corners that are available. They just have got to improve at the secondary, and honestly, they should take as many chances as they can. They don't have a whole lot of draft picks to go around, so it's tough to say that. But between free agency, they should bring in as many people as they could potentially lure to Seattle to try to fix that secondary. Any and all options are welcome if you're a Seahawks fan. Back to the Chargers. We went IDL first time round. They could go linebacker Christian Harris. Interesting, right? Kenneth Murray feels like a similar player, but Murray just hasn't quite worked yet. I think you go edge here, and let's go Nick Bonito. I initially thought he'd be better in that 4-3, and you play him on the edge, use a lot of stunts, but I could see him working in a 3-4, but overall, you're just trying to find somebody to work opposite of Joey Bosa, Uchenna Nwosu, especially if you could find someone where they can play as that 3-4 outside linebacker, and then you could play Nwosu as the other outside linebacker, play Joey Bosa as a 3-4 end. I think he could be primed to just have so many great matchups against guards, right? Like, Joey Bosa beats up on tackles. Now, imagine him against guards. Yeah, he'd have that game-wrecking ability that you see from Chris Jones and Grady Jarrett and, of course, Aaron Donald, Cam Hayward also. When you have an interior disruptor, it makes everything easier. And I think if you do that with Bosa, Nwosu, and then Bonito as your 3-4 outside linebackers, I think then you have a great pass rush, and of course on top of Jordan Davis, who's this unbelievable nose tackle that can help you stop the run. I think there's a pathway forward, and plus if you have Davis next to Bosa, Bosa's weaknesses against the run, but that's Davis' strength. Those two kind of hide one another. So I don't know, just how I think it should and could play out. But if you went somewhere else other than edge, or you just want to know Uchenna Nwosu replacement, that also could be in play here with Bonito. Back to the Jets, we've gone corner, we've gone edge. Let's go to linebacker, and I think Christian Harris is some good value here. And in a lot of ways, feels like a younger version of C.J. Mosley, one of the Alabama products, but someone who will get their job, or make their money by rushing the passer and be a good especially rushing up in the middle against centers and guards. I think Christian Harris can have a ton of success there, and just gives this Jets defense something they don't have. But additionally, you could say it's something they have, but Christian Harris is a lot cheaper than C.J. Mosley, and it could be someone they try to move on from this upcoming year. Also, Jarrad Davis is on a one-year deal, and he hasn't really worked out either. So this is another area where the Jets defense could definitely get better. And, I don't think Harris is similar to Fred Warner really at all. Maybe if Braden Smith's here, or Braden Smith, I should say. If he's here, that would make a whole lot of sense. He's probably closer to that Fred Warner type. But trying to find someone to fit within that role for Robert Saleh makes sense here. And I don't know if it's Harris, could be, maybe, but maybe one of the other linebackers available instead at 48. Kansas City Chiefs back on the clock. We went wide receiver first time round. Could go edge, but I'm going to go safety here. And I'll go Daxton Hill. I like Brandon Joseph a ton too, but anybody who takes Daniel Sorensen off the field, we want it. And I think this is a defense that should utilize three safeties a lot. Like, you should see Tyrann Mathieu all over the field. You should see Juan Thornhill, but it shouldn't just be the two of those, because clearly those two play, and you still see Dan Sorensen. So add another safety in the mix. Move on from Dan Sorensen completely. And Daxton Hill could be this guy who plays free. He can play in the box, play strong. So you can continue to move around Mathieu and Juan Thornhill a lot. So, and I think that's going to be something you see out of really good teams, right? Like the Bucs do a really good job with Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. And then the third safety is escaping my off the top of my head right now. But having three safeties that can rotate in and out, I think is going to be a valuable resource, especially if you're going to play those two high looks, 2-4-6. I think it becomes that much more important. So I like Daxton Hill there. Definitely could be edge, though. I wouldn't hate edge there at 49. Pittsburgh Steelers at 50. I think Carson Strong is their guy. Granted, that said, keeping Kenny Pickett in Pittsburgh, that would be an awesome storyline. But Carson Strong feels like a pretty seamless transition from Big Ben to the heir apparent, right? He's not a guy who's going to do a whole lot with his legs, but man, it's like a computer, right? You input the coordinates, and he's going to get the ball out, and it's going to be a missile. And I think Carson Strong allows you to go where the strength of the Steelers team is, even if they don't bring back Juju, and maybe they bring back James Washington instead. This team has wide receivers. They have a ton of talent on the perimeter. Go spread. Go 3 and 4 wide. And then get Freiermuth also as a wide receiver, basically split him out wide. You can use Najee Harris in that role as well. So spread the field and not only force defenses to account for more horizontally, but vertically, right? This guy has an unbelievable arm. Get more out of DJ down the field. Get the most out of Chase Claypool as a 50-50 downfield option as you can. So I think Carson Strong's kind of the guy they're looking at, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's Kenny Pickett either. And I'm going to go back-to-back quarterbacks here, and you can flip these around. Maybe it's Carson Strong going 51 to the Saints and Pickett to the Steelers at 50, but I think Pickett could be that guy that is the replacement. And I think both of these guys, is more so Pickett in this situation, but he makes sense for the Steelers and the Saints because he is older. He's 23 years old. He'll be 24 by the time he's playing in his rookie year. That makes it a little bit easier, not just taking a shot on a 21-year-old who may or may not be ready to go right away. You feel a little bit better about someone who's older and has more college football and more playing time experience overall. Try to come in and immediately take advantage of those two rosters, the Saints and the Steelers, and try to put them in a position to continue to win football games. So I think Pickett makes a lot of sense for both those teams, but I just like Carson Strong a little bit better for Pittsburgh, and I think Pickett then becomes the next best option for the Saints. San Francisco, they got to get corner. They could use a wide receiver, right? Brandon Ayuk's been a big disappointment this year. They could use edge, yeah, no doubt about it. But Namia Pritchett, I think, might be the play there. Jermaine Waller could be an option. I'll go with Waller. He's somebody I've watched a little bit at Virginia Tech. I haven't completely gotten through all my corners just yet, and part of that is a process that's going to have to wait until after we get through the NFL season. But cornerback in general. Pick a corner you like. Give them to the 49ers there at 52. And now we're back to the Raiders, and we went IOL. We got a Kennard back in the first round. It was Kennard, right? Not Green. No, it was Kenyon Green. I beg your pardon. We got Kenyon Green in the first round, and again, the Henry Ruggs effect has taken effect, and could go John Mechie the third here. One Alabama speedster for another. Might be a little too soon, but maybe you like John Mechie and he's the pick here. I'm going to go George Pickens, just for the sake I don't want to just replace one Alabama wide receiver who has a ton of speed with another. But Pickens is this ultimate wild card who is 6'3", great frame, looks like a wide receiver one, and is a true separator, has great hands. He does it all. And if he wasn't hurt, he might be wide receiver one, but obviously a scary injury a year ago, and he's just now getting back into things with Georgia. So we'll see. The second round might be too early for Pickens. He might prove to be an even later pick and a bigger risk than what I'm seeing it as right now. But hey, this team needs a true wide receiver that can separate, but also take the top off the defense, and Pickens can do both. But that said, if you wanted to replace Henry Ruggs with John Mechie III, that might be the most seamless transition of player archetypes. So either one there for the Raiders. Now back to the Bills at 54. I think this is a spot where I'm going to finally go first running back. Clearly, I'm not uber high on this running back class, but man, Kenneth Walker, who potentially is in the Heisman mix right there, probably not right there with, but in the conversation around C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young. But he's been fantastic this year, and this guy just knows how to shrug off tackles. He has a high missed tackle percentage, PFF number right there. And Javonte Williams led that category last year, and he's looked really good as a rookie, so that kind of bodes well for what that stat means as it translates to the NFL. And it's one of the spots where that offense can definitely get better. And especially with Josh Allen taking a step back, we anticipate a little bit of a step back, but not quite as much as he's had this year. But in a game against the Colts where they're giving a bunch of too high looks and he's struggling to make good decisions against those too high safety looks, whether it's 2, 4, or 6, cover 2, 4, 6, that is, it would definitely help having a consistent running game, right? And Kenneth Walker's going to shrug off tackles. We went offensive line earlier in this draft. I think that's a way you can try to make the life of Josh Allen a little easier and forces defenses to take too high and go rotate down to single high. And then you open up that offense once again in the pass scheme. So just in theory, how I see it working there, potentially with Kenneth Walker. Browns, we went DeMarvin Leal first time around. And now I'm going to go wide receiver. And we could go with David Bell here. I think is a nice, solid possession type. But let's go ahead and go John Mechie, right? Give him a big play waiting to happen. Baker has the arm if he is the quarterback next year. That is a big, kind of an if right now. But this guy who has unbelievable speed can take the top off the defense, and then you have Jarvis Landry eating underneath. David Bell makes some sense as that possession guy. When you need a first down on 3rd and 8, this guy can get open and hold on to the football across the middle of the field. I totally get that, but I think I'd rather go with the big play element that Mechie brings at 55. On to the Bucks. I'm not in love with some of the interior offensive line options here. Zion Johnson could make some sense. Now, I do have the Johnson coming off the board here pretty soon. I'm going to go Perion Winfrey. I think he's definitely a better pass rusher than he is a run stopper. He needs to improve in that area, but playing next to Vita Vea, you feel a little bit better about the two of them being able to stop the run, or at least Vea hiding Winfrey. But Winfrey does get to the quarterback at a pretty high rate, and having that interior pressure would make the lives of Shaq Barrett and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka a little bit easier. So I like Winfrey as a potential Ndamukong Suh replacement for the Bucs. Back to the Broncos. They have a couple of picks here. Let's bolster that offensive line. I think they do need, especially a right tackle of the future. Jackson Kirkland was a guy getting a lot of first-round buzz. I originally had him as offensive tackle 2 in this class. Obviously, things can change. But let's go Kirkland. Bowles continues to play pretty well on the left side, but he is starting to get closer to age 30 season, and they need a right tackle anyway, so maybe Kirkland can make that switch over the other side of the line. And now we get to the Patriots, and, we gave wide receiver, and then I talked about how much they still need corner. Even if they bring back J.C. Jackson, I think they need corner. We can go Noah Daniels. I think he's a guy who has a lot of man coverage talent and ability, so I think he fits well with what Bill Belichick wants to do. So maybe a J.C. Jackson replacement, maybe a nice J.C. Jackson complement, right? So I think it works either way there for the Patriots. You get a corner, you get a wide receiver. Sounds like a successful 2 rounds there for the Pats. Back to the Broncos. I'm going to go safety here, and this one I have my guy Brandon Joseph come off the board. Verone McKinley. He's definitely more of a free safety, and really you're looking for that Kareem Jackson strong safety, box safety replacement. I think Joseph does that a little bit better, or more likely to be able to do that more successfully than McKinley the third. So I'm going to take Joseph there as your Kareem Jackson replacement. And second round safety, not bad value there for that position. Back to the Cowboys. I'm going to go, this is where I'm going to actually go with Zion Johnson. When this team, not only are they battling a lot of wide receiver injuries, but Tyron Smith's been hurt, and Lyle Collins has, been kind of weird this year in and out of the lineup. So bolstering the offensive line depth, and Johnson's a guy who shifted over to play tackle in 2020 at BC, so gives you the ability to play on the inside and the outside for when injuries happen or when players are out of the lineup. Obviously, COVID's still a thing. I don't know if it will be next year, but if that is, just another element that could take a player off the field. So having depth at a very valuable position to that offense is going to be really important. I think, Johnson at 60, pretty decent value there. Back to the Atlanta Falcons. Could go in a few different places here. I'd probably just prioritize best player available. You could go get a deep free safety here with McKinley the third. Could also go linebacker. Could go wide receiver as well. Where I think I'm leaning right now is you could go Zion Johnson or interior offensive line in general. Don't necessarily love a lot of these options. Could go, I think I'm going to go with interior defensive line. I'm going to go Travis Jones, and my thinking is he's a true nose tackle. You put him next to Grady Jarrett and then DeMarvin Leal, who we took earlier in this draft, and you let Leal and Jarrett get after QBs, and you let Jones be your run-stopping nose tackle. At least when you confine it to those simplified versions of the roles, I think it fits and looks good on paper. Now we're on to the Green Bay Packers, and I think you need to start looking at offensive line. Bakhtiari obviously isn't going to play forever, and now Elton Jenkins is down for presumably the rest of the year, and then he's going to miss some time next year with a torn ACL. So you could go Zion Nelson. He's a bit of a project. I'd go Thayer Munford, close to home, I guess, with Ohio State and Green Bay. But a guy who gives you some options there at tackle, left or right side, so you don't have to play a guy named Yash, who not only doesn't have a different name, but that's not me trying to be a dick, but he just hasn't been that good this year. So bolstering that depth and the inevitability that some of your tackle play some of those players go down, right? So I think Munford is a good insurance cause, whether it's Bryce or Jordan Love or whoever under center next year for Green Bay. Video's getting long. I'm losing my mind. We're back to the Ravens. I think this is a spot to go corner. Yeah, we'll go with Evans here. Caleb Evans out of Missouri. Long, got those stretchy arms too, so kind of feels like a Marlon Humphrey-ish type of corner, and in the event that Humphrey or Peters continue to battle injuries, it's nice to have that depth for sure. Plus Jimmy Smith, I'm pretty sure, last year of his contract this year, so he's on an expiring deal. So good to add some depth there. And I think corner is probably where you stay here. We can go with Nehemiah Pritchett. I'm fine with that. But insert any corner there for the Cardinals after they went edge in round 1. I think makes some sense to solidify what that defense and what Vance Joseph has to work with. But that is going to do it for my first 2-round NFL mock draft of the year. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button. It would help me out a ton. And if you're new to the channel, want to see more draft content, more football content in general, hit that big red subscribe button. But most importantly, comment your takeaways down in the comment section. Where did I go wrong? Who do I have too high? Who do I have fallen too far? Who's your favorite team? Who are some players you'd like to see them end up with this upcoming NFL draft? That's going to do it for today's video. Hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day. And until next time, my name is Tej, and I'm signing off.